Good afternoon and welcome to the second installment of Decipher Wars Radio. I am your host, Mark Tuttle. I'm the Public Relations and Marketing Manager for Decipher Incorporated, and this show
30 seconds until entry
is all about our upcoming The Moomin Rift Wars TCG that premieres in October here from Decipher. Now, this week we had promised you the first of a two-part interview with Warren Holland, and in regards to the folks of you out there who are on dial-up modems, we could have done a very, very long show today. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to shorten it up just a little bit. We're going to move Warren's first interview to next week because we wanted to get our first interview out of the way, which involved the playtest at Origins last week. So Warren's Part 1 interview will take place next Friday right here on Decipher Wars Radio. I apologize that we moved that back another week on you. It's a great interview. You'll learn a lot of good things about the background of the story. But again, we want to make sure that you guys don't have to download a 20 to 25 meg file. So we do have all kinds of great things for you today. We'll do some email just a little bit. We also have the big reveal coming at the end of the show, and it involves the first chance that you will have to see some of the artwork from the Moomin Rift Wars TCG. So that'll be very exciting. Let's start with our interview for this week. It's Mr. Tom Lischke. Tom is from the game studio here at Decipher, and Tom is one of the guys designing the Moomin Rift Wars TCG. Tom, welcome to Decipher Wars Radio.
Thanks, Mark.
Let's start off with the important stuff right away. Where are you from?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, originally.
How tall are you?
Yeah, 6'5", 6'6".
Now, is that before or after the foam cheese hat?
I can go up to good 6'7", 6'8" with the foam cheese.
All right, let's talk Wars TCG. You guys held a playtest at the Origins convention in Columbus this past weekend. Tell us what happens at a playtest like this, and as a design staff, what are you guys looking to learn?
Well, that can vary from test to test. Taking it back a step, we really try to lay down a set of goals for a given testing session, things we're going to be looking at, and then we'll set up a card set that will help us gather data on those particular issues. For this test at Columbus, we were really looking for some data on how former SWCCG players, and current ones, of course, reacted to the tweaks we made on the Wars engine. And we really had a fairly limited card pool at the test. We brought about 180 different cards with us. Most of them, it was essentially the commons that we had written for now, and then a handful of rares and uncommons. So the cards were pretty vanilla, and the locations were pretty vanilla, but that's because we wanted to see how people reacted to playing the system, not how they reacted to playing any individual card. And we're still at a point in the development of the game that we're looking for feedback on the system, not for balance on any individual cards. So some of the cards were a little broken or a little soft, but what we were really hoping to get was some feedback on how people reacted to the game engine.
All right, set the scene for us. We, in advance, we had interviewed, we probably sent invitations out to maybe 150 different people and said, we're holding this play test, it's free, we'd like you to show up, we'd like your feedback. How many people were in the room? What kind of room was it? How was it laid out?
It was about 40 to 50 people. It was a fairly long room with a double row of tables, about 6 people to a table. That was a little bit cramped because the way the game was playing last weekend, there were some footprint issues. Games were getting to be 12 to 14 locations wide, so getting 3 different games on the same table with that, there was some squeezing going on. It got crowded, brought in some pizza about halfway through, threw in a little booster draft about halfway through too. So,
now, how did you do that? How did that work?
The development guys put together some booster packs, basically took a bunch of commons, and that's where the uncommons and rares really came in. We actually started earlier with some pre-con decks that we put together, and then the booster packs we made up used cards from those pre-cons with some additional commons and uncommons thrown into them just for some spice in the draft process.
All right, so how'd the booster draft go?
Well, I think it went pretty well. I still want to talk to some more people who were involved with it, but everybody seemed to be having a good time and joking around, and they weren't grumpy about it or anything like that. So you'll find at a test, if people aren't enjoying what they're doing, you'll hear about it pretty quickly.
Now, what should this say to anybody that has questions about the game if we are this far ahead in the design process, testing it for booster draft?
It's more of a ramification of the fact that booster draft is so important to us. Draft play, limited play is such an important and fun part of a viable TCG that we really want to make sure we have a good focus from the beginning. So, it's something we're excited about. It's the thing that's causing us to, if anything has caused some tweaks to the Wars engine, it's making sure that it serves draft play.
How did the former players, how fast did they pick it up? How much of it was familiar to them? How'd they do?
Well, we brought a one-page sheet that had basically just a punch list of rules, and with the changes from the old system called out in red, and then took just a couple minutes to go over the changes with them, and they were right in. They picked it up really quickly. They had a few questions now and again through the course of the day, but it tended to be more about individual cards than it was about the changes to the game system. So they picked it up really quickly. And the reaction we were getting from them was that it was, it feels like the Wars engine. It has the things that make the Wars engine. It has the resource mechanic. It has battling. It has destiny draws. We didn't really have the high-end manipulative cards there. Those are, we actually sort of withheld those a little bit just because, like I said earlier, we wanted testing on the engine. But seeing them deploy and seeing them drain and seeing them fight, I think they were into it pretty quickly. The
playtest itself, now that it's done, you guys came back, you had pagefuls of notes. What did you learn from it?
The system's about where we thought. The one major change, major tweak, major change, however you want to say it, to the system is including something we're calling support icons. The Wars engine was initially 2 different card backs and essentially a 2-faction game. Like I talked about, we want robust draft and limited play, and that means more than 2 factions. So to enable that, we need something that makes sure that you don't just play the best card from every faction, otherwise there'll be no deck diversity in the constructed decks. So we have a system that sort of splits decks into 1 to 3 factions probably will show up in a given deck. And that part's still raw. That's the addition to the system. It's the thing that we're pouring most of our energy into making sure that's right and doesn't disrupt the natural flow of the Wars engine. In a perfect world, it'll be pretty much transparent when you're playing the game. It'll feel like the old Wars engine, and there'll just be this other element within the game that makes you play, choose a couple factions instead of just throwing them all into the deck.
Sounds like a winner. We have got more on this coming up within the next couple of weeks, as I pointed out. If people want to get into your head right now, though, they can check out your design diaries. Where are those?
They're on the message boards. I'm kind of excited. It's a new format on the message boards and really does a good job enabling people to give some input and feedback. And actually right now we're talking about the support icon system, which is that element that I talked about that we're adding to the system to support the 5-faction play. So if you want input, here's your time to go and, either to see what we're doing or to give your 2 cents on what you think we should be doing to make that work.
All right, Tom Lischke from the Decipher Game Studio. Thanks for coming by.
Sure, Mark.
All right, it's time for email.
Email. We get email.
All right.
We get your email every day. Here's your mail today.
Lots of good email following last week's show, folks. Don't forget, you can email us, wars.radio@decipher.com. Every week, we'll read a couple of emails and pick one email of the week and give you a great prize. So let's kind of check the mailbag today, see what we have for you. This one, I'm not even sure what this means exactly. This is sent to me from Moog via the Decipher message boards. It says, I don't know if you follow Chicago radio news at all, but the legendary Gary Meyer is available again, and since he can't succeed without a co-host, perhaps you two could hook up. I'm not even sure what he's talking about. Well, thank you. I assume that's a compliment. I hope. Or maybe he's just trying to get me out of here. Next letter. This is from Rick. Rick sends the email. He says, I really enjoyed the First Wars radio show. Very classy. It left me very excited about the property. I definitely prefer this personal approach. What I would really like to see is a hint of the artistry that will be associated with Wars. More on that coming up with the big reveal in just a couple of moments. I'm very familiar with the Star Wars CCG game mechanics, so it's not really a mystery to me. What I would like to see are some examples of the card templates and the artwork you plan to use. Now, his question, will there be a variety of card templates that we saw in Star Wars? For example, blue for ships, green for weapons, red for verb cards, and so on. I would really like to know. Sincerely, Mighty Toast. All right, well, Rick, that's a good question. And here's a bit of an answer for you on that one. No, you're not going to see the blue for vehicles and ships and red for verb cards. Each culture is going to have their own card template, and each culture has a color that's associated with it. Not just based on the card template, but rather each culture has somewhat of a color that is reminiscent of who they are as a faction. So you'll see the cultures, the factions designed that way, but you will see some generic templated cards for some of the things like generic weapons and ships and things like that. So good question there. Next letter, this one will be my email of the week. This is from Scott Goodrich because he asks a very good question. He says, Mark, says many players are incredibly excited over the revival of the old game mechanics, as well as they should be. These players, however, are likely to have a sizable advantage over new players to the game that never experienced its predecessor. How does Decipher plan to get these newer players up to speed? With all the hype and talk of old rules and terminology, what can new players do to best understand what the veterans are referring to? Are there old resources available for review, such as old rulebooks or sample decks? Well, if you do go to our website, Decipher.com, you can pull up the Star Wars CCG archives, and you can read up on all of that. But I'm not so certain, Scott, that the old players are going to have a sizable advantage over the newer players, and here's why. I watched a game played last week, a couple games actually, and I kept asking questions like, well, is there a traffic control? Is there a reactor terminal in this game? Well, he could hit you with a Monarch. We have a Monarch, don't we? And some of the answers to those questions were no. So I'm almost of the opinion now that some of the older players who were very, very good players and very prolific players might be at a disadvantage because they're going to be in the mindset, they're going to think, okay, well, if he gets too many cards in his hand, I can do this, or if I need to get these cards back in, I can do this. Maybe starting from a fresh approach will be the best way to go about this. We'll see if that does indeed happen. Scott, this is my email of the week. We're going to set you up with a great prize, and based on your email here, I know how to get a hold of you for that. All right, it is now time for the big reveal, folks, and I promised you that this would have something to do with you getting your first look at some of the art from the Muon Rift Wars TCG. Now, I don't have a URL for you, but this is something that I need to tell you about. Decipher has, for the past couple of months now, been sending out what we're referring to as our preview postcards. Now, the preview postcards are basically regular little postcards, art on one side, information on the back side, about the releases that we have here at Decipher. We've been sending them out for probably 6 months now. And these go to your local retailers if they're a member of Decipher's preferred retail program. If they are, they get these postcards, they set them in their store, they put them by their register, and fans of the various games, Lord of the Rings and Dot Hack and Star Trek, can pick up that postcard and turn it over and learn about the upcoming release. The third quarter preview postcards just went out to the Decipher preferred retailers, and included in that is the Wars TCG preview postcard. Now, whereas the postcards in the past have had just one image on the front, the Muon Rift Wars postcard has 8 images, kind of a collage on the front, and it's representative of all of the different races that you'll see, except for one, in the Muon Rift Wars TCG. Turn it over on the back. This is really exciting, especially if you're going to Gen Con, because this preview postcard, not only does it get you excited about the upcoming game, but this preview postcard, which I have in my hot little hand right here, is also an invitation to the special sneak peek presentation of the Muon Rift Wars TCG at Gen Con Indy on Saturday, August 21st, 2004 at the Indiana Convention Center. To get into this event, you have to have one of these preview postcards. So, the shipments have gone out. They're in transit right now. So if your retailer is a Decipher preferred retailer, they will be getting these next week. You need to start bugging them right now to make sure they set one of these aside for you. Now, if your retailer is not a member of Decipher's preferred retail program, they need to get on board. If they sign up in the next couple of days, then I'll make sure that they get some of these preview postcards sent to them. All right? Easy way to check. Go and ask your retailer. If they don't know, go to Decipher.com, click on the Where to Buy link. If your local store doesn't show up in that link, then they're not in Decipher's preferred retailer program. So, the big reveal, folks, the preview postcard for Wars TCG is on its way to your retailers right now. And also, I told you there were 8 pictures on the front here. One of the pictures is a piece of conceptual artwork from John Howe, of course, who did the conceptual artwork for the Lord of the Rings films. So we got some big names on this project, and this is your first chance to see what the Quay will look like. So we're very excited about it, folks. Preview postcards, they will be in stores next week. That is your big reveal right now on Wars Radio here at Decipher.com. All right, that's going to wrap up the show for this week, folks. We wanted to keep it short for you so you'd be able to download it. Next week, of course, we've got the July 4th weekend here in the United States over the next couple of days. No one in the Decipher offices on Monday, but you can still email me, wars.radio@decipher.com. Next Friday, part 1 of our interview with Warren Holland, and maybe we'll take a look at some art. That's my promise for next week, folks. Next Friday, Decipher Wars Radio. Have yourselves a great holiday if you're celebrating it. We will see you next time.
Signal verification is complete.